Honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, we are about to see historic consequences for historic Liberal corruption. We're here in the House of Commons chamber this week on Wednesday. Christian Firth, one of the two people who work at GC Strategies, one of the favourite contractors of this NDP-Liberal government, will be hauled before the bar of the House of Commons. They'll be brought into this House of Commons chamber where normally just members of Parliament meet and debate. And after being admonished by the Speaker for failing to answer questions properly at committee, that favoured contractor of this NDP-Liberal government will be forced to answer questions in multiple rounds from members of all parties for over 100 minutes. This is the history that's going to unfold in this chamber this week, a historic response to historic NDP-Liberal corruption. GC Strategies got the contract for the Arrive Scam app. And it's not clear why. This is a two-person company. They did no work on the app. They got almost $20 million simply for receiving the contract and subcontracting. Essentially, their business model is to go on LinkedIn, they find other people who can do the work, and they receive the contract, subcontract to other people who can do the work. But they collected almost $20 million in the process, according to the Auditor General. Now, GC Strategies dispute that number. They say it wasn't 20 million, it was more like 11 million. Only 11 million that they collected. Well, if you do the math according to their own GC Strategies figures, Christian Firth collected over $2,500 per hour. $2,500 per hour working for this government. How can anybody else who's good with LinkedIn get a piece of that deal as well? Mr. Speaker, we're going to find that out when in this historic moment this week, a representative of GC Strategies, Christian Firth, is called before the bar. What we know, Mr. Speaker, and what we will probe further with questions when we have this historic exchange this week. What we know already is that GC Strategies was a favourite contractor of this NDP-Liberal government. This company, founded in 2015, benefited from processes that were clearly designed to benefit them. In fact, we know from the Auditor General's report that at one point senior officials sat down and met with representatives from GC Strategies to figure out the specifications of the contract, which GC Strategies would then bid on and get. So it was a made-for insiders process, designed specifically to benefit this two-person company. This two-person company that did no IT work, that got the deal, and then subcontracted. Mr. Speaker, what we're seeing is historic corruption under this NDP-Liberal government. We have processes that are designed to benefit well-connected insiders at enormous expense to taxpayers. Arrive Scam, GC Strategies, $60 million spent developing an app. This is just the tip of the iceberg, because we know now that there are 635 different firms, not one, but 635 different firms that are doing so-called staff augmentation in the IT space for this government. Over 600 firms whose business it is to receive contracts and then to subcontract the actual work. So, Mr. Speaker, to the Parliamentary Secretary, is the government prepared to acknowledge and apologize for this system of costly criminal corruption that they've been presiding over for the last 8 years?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank the member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, for the question and reassure him that we're taking allegations seriously. As the honourable member is aware, the CBSA initiated an internal investigation as soon as there were allegations of inappropriate contracting practices. The matter was also referred to the RCMP for investigation. Contracts with 3 companies involved, including GC Strategies, have also been suspended through a stop work order from Public Services and Procurement Canada. We expect procurement practices to be followed properly, and anyone who does not follow contracting rules will face appropriate consequences. This has been and always will be the case. The Procurement Ombud and the Auditor General's reports have identified unacceptable gaps in management processes, roles, and controls. Some recommendations have already been implemented, and the CBSA is taking further action to ensure practices are aligned with policies and meet the expectations that Canadians have. Need I remind the honourable member of the context in which the app was developed? The CBSA needed to develop and launch this app as quickly as possible at the request of the Public Health Agency of Canada after a global pandemic was declared in March of 2020. The CBSA was working as quickly as possible to replace a paper process that was not meeting public health needs and was also impacting the border with significant wait times that disrupted the essential flow of people and goods. I wish to point out, Mr. Speaker, that the Auditor General did recognize in her report that the government improved the speed and quality of information collected at the border by using the ArriveCan app rather than a paper-based format. The ArriveCan app was an essential tool at the time to collect mandatory health information while facilitating travel and trade. The government is taking steps to ensure all departments are better positioned to undertake projects of this nature in the future. Mr. Speaker, in wrapping up my remarks, I want to emphasize that this should not detract from the commendable efforts of frontline border officers and all CBSA personnel who diligently serve and protect Canadian citizens on a daily basis and in support of our country's economy. This government remains committed to act on the findings of all audits, reviews, and investigations. Thank you.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park for Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, the question was not about the frontline workers. It was about the costly criminal corruption that has become commonplace under this NDP-Liberal government. Christian Firth, who will be hauled before the bar of this chamber and forced to answer questions on Wednesday, admitted previously before committee that it was systematically part of his process to doctor the resumes of those doing the work before submitting them to the government. The government's favoured contractor, the person who they rigged the process to benefit, admitted to systematically altering resumes. Now, this isn't about all the other points of misdirection that the parliamentary secretary is trying to serve up in the House. This is about the question of corruption in procurement. Then why this government was intentionally designing processes to direct contracts to their friends who engage in such corrupt practices. Why did the parliamentary secretary and his government constantly favour GC strategies?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government is committed to transparency and accountability. We acknowledge the Procurement Ombudsman and the Auditor General's reports have identified gaps in management processes, roles, and controls at the CBSA. Some recommendations in the report have already been implemented, and the CBSA will take further action to ensure management practices are aligned with policies and processes to maintain the confidence of Canadians. We welcome the ongoing investigations and look forward to the findings. In addition, Public Services and Procurement Canada will continue to strengthen all aspects of the federal procurement system, and we'll use the findings from these reports to improve the way the government does business with its suppliers. Mr. Speaker, I wish to assure the honourable member and all Canadians that this government takes any allegation of misconduct very seriously, and we will keep prioritizing efficiency, accountability, and transparency in the management of public resources. Thank you.